Welcome back to the show. You had questions. We now have answers. Nick Shirley literally just blew the lid with the most, probably the largest fraud scheme in American history, spanning multiple states. Till this day, till this very moment, we're still trying to figure out how far this goes. But see, a lot of the question that everyone keeps asking me is, Rico, how did this happen? I need the details. Now, personally, I've been speculating this entire time because I'm from an immigrant family. I understand how we look at Americans and look at America, especially when you're new to the country. The way it works is that, unfortunately, it's the same way with the mob. Remember the movies? Remember The Godfather? Remember Casino? Remember the Italians of old? They would bring people from the old country because they didn't speak English, so they were loyal to the rules and the regulations of your former country. Even if you're in America, you're still living like you were in Sicily or whatever. The same thing goes for immigrants too. We only can talk to one another, and we have our own enforcers that keep our own people only in line. We're solid. We're not going to talk. We're not going to snitch. We can't talk anyway, and we really can't snitch because we can't go anywhere else. The warmth of the community is the only thing we have in this new land. So because of that, we don't tell. This is what makes us the perfect patsies for people that want to, for Americans who are looking for scapegoats to commit crimes, to keep themselves in power, etc. That's why it's like every Democrat state you go to, it's like they pick a country, they pick a struggle, and then they start to dance like those people, eat those people's food because they need you to vote for them, and they want to keep you in power. See, an immigrant, if you tell them who to vote for and they're afraid, they're going to vote for that person. An American, you can tell you tell an American one thing, they can go in that booth and do something completely different. Even if you give them money, there's no guaranteed that they went in that booth and did what you told them to do. These immigrants it's inconsequential, the future of this country. They just do what they're told. So, and honestly, watching a little bit of this video, they confirm this. So look, let's go ahead and start this video. I love how he does a breakdown of the different of the scams and how it works. Understand this thing is happening. This is happening in your exact same state as well. So let's take a listen so you can learn what to look out for and join the movement.
I don't know about how come they said the building was closed?
There's a lot of fraud happening here in Minnesota.
He said, now is the time to leer. Bro, they are wearing out that word leer. That is hilarious. I love it. Love it.
You've been living here for years now. How bad is this fraud?
So I was born in Minneapolis a long time ago. I've lived my whole life here. And my opinion is that this is the worst fraud in human history, what is occurring in Minnesota and more specifically in the Twin Cities right now.
How much money do you think has been sent around fraudulently here inside Minnesota?
Over the years, I would say anywhere from 80 to $100 billion.
Right now, the big controversy is with Tim Walz and his government and the fraud that they've allowed to happen within the Somalian community. Right behind us is Cedar Riverside, a location where it is very densely populated with Somalians. How have Somalians gotten into the system to fraud the American taxpayer?
Well, so that complex you're seeing behind there, I attended the University of Minnesota, and in the area we're on right now, this is the West Bank, and it was always called the West Bank, and it was sort of the place to be when you're in college, and that was all student housing, 100%. That building you see in the background, it's now 100% Somali. And I can tell you confidently, they don't pay for their housing, they don't pay for their food, they don't pay for their vehicles. And on top of that, they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fraudulent companies set up, and they're sucking billions of dollars out of the state of Minnesota.
Remember, I told you guys a few days ago, I said, voting as an illegal in the United States is legal. Basically, all you have to do is be a warm body. You don't have to be a citizen. and they'll count you for congressional seats in your wherever they put you. But there is no auditing. And if you're an illegal, but you're caught voting, but the person you vote for, if they win, there's no recourse anyway. So it's in their best interest to bring people here who are going to help them with their fraud. I was explaining it to you. These people are not refugees from other countries. They're employees. Moving to the United States is a job. They're paid to be here. You're not. You're an American. You're not given anything to be here. They're actually recruiting families to move here to do business and to work, but to work for them. And by work, that means just live here. So they give you free food. They give you cash. You have free access to housing because you're being paid to be here so that you can illegally vote and illegally be counted on the census. The only difference is us Americans don't speak Somalian. A lot of us, some people don't speak Spanish. They don't speak Arabic. So you don't know what's going on with these people who have moved into your neighborhoods because we purposely do not talk to you. I don't care how many Americans are around. We stay in our own enclaves with our own people that speak our own language. We don't mingle and mix in with the locals. That's not the assignment. You guys have to understand you're being played and it's going on all around you. And they're basically just siphoning your money from your pocket without you knowing it. And they're using your goodwill and your good intention so that you don't ask any questions. You're going to have to get over yourself and start asking more questions.
And how are they sucking billions of dollars out of the state of Minnesota?
Well, one example would be with the hundreds of childcare facilities that they have set up. And on every one that I visited, and I've been to maybe 100 of them or more, I never, ever have seen one child at any facilities ever over the past 7 years, 8 years.
What are the...
And you never will. For one thing, no American's gonna drop their kids off with a bunch of people who speak a language that they don't even understand. You don't know their customs. You don't know their background. You're not going to trust them with your child while you're at work for 8 or 9 hours. You couldn't even call and have a conversation with these people. You don't know what their religious beliefs are. You have no idea who these strangers are, but they set up all these empty daycares just to scam you. They're not necessarily scamming the state and the federal government. They're scamming us. They're scamming taxpayers. And they've been getting away with it because this is how you pay for their loyalty. Remember, these people are at work. They're being paid to be here. This is how they're able to get paid.
Businesses that are being used to fraud the taxpayer here in Minnesota. You have the daycares. What are all of them?
So you have childcare, you have adult daycare, you have in-home health care, you have street health care, and nobody really knows how that's defined. And then you have transportation, non-emergency medical transportation. And if you do a search, you'll see that the state of Minnesota says they have 1,020 non-emergency medical transportation companies. And my research is showing that 95% of those are Somali owned.
But it's crazy. The 5% that are not Somali owned, those are the only ones who ever get audited. They don't audit the Somalian ones. I'll be honest, I'm in Arizona. I've heard about all the fraud stuff they just broke up here with the group homes. Guess who were the number one group of people doing the fraud? Africans. Not necessarily from Somalia only, but there was some from the Sudan. There was a big time guy from Kenya. And the crazy thing is they can always change their name and their identity and move around. So it's hard to arrest them or to catch them because remember, a lot of this stuff is paperwork, it's virtual. And if they give you a different name, there's no birth certificate. There's no fingerprints most of the time. There's no social security number. And especially if they came across the border when it was open, you don't have no idea who these people are. So how do you hold somebody accountable who doesn't really exist? These people only exist because whatever the Biden administration let them claim a name. But they can just unclaim that name like that. That's not who they really are. Remember, you used to seeing all those tens of thousands of IDs just dumped at the border? They would dump their actual identity and start a whole new one here. You have no idea about their background. See, there's a lot of things we don't know as Americans, but they do. But we don't speak their language. We don't speak to them. They're here for work. We live here. We have completely different agendas.
And what I know is that the people writing the checks at the state of Minnesota never, ever, ever verified that any trip was ever made or that any appointment was ever made with a dentist, chiropractor, or anything.
And so these people are able to start these businesses and then immediately get funds from the government?
Yes. So interestingly that you bring up licensing, because another area of fraud that I exposed was all of these autism centers, because I would drive around the Twin Cities. I said, well, there's another autism center. I said, what's going on with all this autism? Is there something in the water? And then I started to look at, well, who owns these autism centers? And virtually 99% of them were owned by Somalis.
And is there an autism outbreak here in Minnesota right now?
There is not. But to open an autism center, you do not need a license.
And so people are claiming their children are autistic.
So all you need is an office space. So you get an office space, you establish that it's a mailing address. You might set up a fake phone number, a fake 1-800 number. And now you have an official office space or brick and mortar. And what do you like? So you just apply for the grant. You fill something out, and it's that easy. And then they're like, okay, give us your account number. We send you money. Or do you got to send in like a roll sheet? Because of all these businesses working together, they have to send in something. And if they're saying, oh yeah, we do transport, and we picked them up from the adult daycare and we drove them to the chiropractor, we drove them to the doctor's office, we took a translator, and then we brought them back home. So what, per person, if you're saying you're doing that for 50 people and you're billing $1,000 a day, you can see how you can rack up millions in just a matter of months. So when they're getting to these multiple millions in less than a year, like, it's starting to make sense, because they're claiming they're doing all these things with different people, but there's no one going out to verify if it's true or not. So you can just kind of say whatever. All it is just filling out some paperwork and sending it in, and then you get a check. If it was this easy for Americans, I don't think Americans would ever complain about anything. The reason Americans are complaining is because everyone's in on the fraud except for us. Like, when is there going to be a fraud that's only for Americans? Because everybody else is getting rich off of Americans, and Americans are literally doing worse than ever because we're playing by the rules. We believe in the country. We want to do the right thing. We don't want to have to stoop and resort to that level. But if we don't, then how can we compete with these fucking foreigners that are over here robbing us? Why can't we rob the foreigners? See, it's just not adding up. And I know people might say you're looking at it from the wrong angle, but maybe I'm tired of being on the receiving end of these ass kickings. Don't you want to start kicking ass yourself? I know I do.
To receive money from the government.
Yes.
And the government, underneath Tim Walz's leadership, they're not going in investigating and doing.
Bro, not just fleeced, we're being raped. This is rape. We're being held down and literally taken advantage of one by one by one. They're literally they're tethering their children, or they're getting over here and they're multiplying like rabbits, and they're literally solidifying their own base. Like, it's an invasion. And they have their own mafia of people that control their people. That's why every time you go to these buildings, you see the women are all working on the inside. The men are nowhere to be found until there seems to be trouble. Then the men pop up with their fucking sandals on, looking around and talking shit with their phones out. They're not necessarily built for war, but they can be a little intimidating for a guy like Nick. You know, he's a young kid. We're literally being raped by these foreigners, and it seems like everyone's okay with it, but yeah, we're not. I think we're going to start pushing back a lot harder.
Doing their due diligence to say, maybe we shouldn't give this company $1 million.
Well, so what's happening is there have been some sporadic inspections done at these facilities, and I have records of some of these inspections. And one inspection, they'll get 11 violations. A childcare facility with 11 violations, that is bad. I mean, unsanitary conditions, broken furniture, no play area for the children. And so they write these things in their report, but then they never follow up to make sure. They never physically revisit the site to make sure that any of those violations are corrected. What they accept is documentation from the center that they've made the corrections.
So at the end of the day.
So that's like expecting an agency to investigate itself. and then being surprised when they find there was no wrongdoing. That doesn't make sense.
They're able to violate certain guidelines, yet they still receive money somehow. How is there not somebody inside the state who's saying, okay, we're seeing this fraud happen, let's maybe not just continue to give money to these people?
So you've probably heard the term Minnesota nice before, which back in the old times, in the old days, it meant something. Now it's actually a curse upon us because the people here, the majority of the people, they're afraid of their own shadows. I'm an outcast because I'm exposing this fraud. I'm telling the truth. My family has basically disowned me because of all of this fraud that I've uncovered. And I've been called a racist, an Islamophobe, white supremacist, Nazi, all these things. I said, look, everything that I talk about is verified. I have it in writing.
You know what's crazy? There's one word he forgot to mention. If I tell you guys what that one word is, I think you might uncover what other group is also defrauding us and our government and our people as well. No one called him an anti-Semite. I wonder who else, what other group is over here doing God knows what. And if you try to call them out or expose what they're doing, they'll call you an anti-Semite. Just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind going forward.
I've gone to politicians. I've gone to Washington, D.C. over the years. I said, look, this fraud is out of control. This is approaching $100 billion. And now you see the U.S. attorney, they started with defeating our future, $250 million. I said, no, that's amateur hour. Then they said it's $1 billion. Now, just today, the U.S. attorney held a press conference and said the fraud is possibly as much as $18 billion, but we don't really know what period of time. And I'm telling you, it's way more than that.
Let's talk to Arthur. Let's see how much money that is. Arthur, quick question. How many countries have a GDP of around $18 billion or less? Because the fraud that we're finding out in the United States with just the Somalian community when it comes to scamming, using daycares, etc., it's north of 18 billion. How many countries that's what their total GDP is?
Certainly. Let me provide a clear and concise answer to that. As of the most recent data, there are indeed a number of countries whose entire GDP is roughly around or below the $18 billion mark. In fact, there are several dozen countries in that range, often smaller nations, island states, or less economically developed regions. To put it in perspective, there are approximately 30 to 40 countries worldwide with GDPs around that threshold or lower. For example, countries like the Maldives, Belize, and some Pacific Island nations have GDPs in that range. So in short, the figure you're referencing, around $18 billion, is indeed comparable to the entire GDP of quite a few countries worldwide.
That is insane. So you said 30 to 40 countries. Aren't there only like 190 countries? So what is that like? What's that? 20% of the world? The fraud in the United States is literally more than what the GDP is of 20% of the world's nations?
Yes, your approximation is quite accurate. With roughly 190 to 195 recognized countries globally, if around 30 to 40 of them have GDPs of about $18 million or less, that does indeed represent approximately about 15 to 20% of the world's nations. In other words, if a fraud amount is comparable to $18 billion, that sum is indeed larger than the entire annual economic output of a significant portion of the world's countries. It's a striking comparison and certainly puts the scale into perspective.
Thank you, Arthur. Are you fucking kidding me? The fraud that we're finding right now because of Nick Shirley doing his investigation, he's already discovered more fraud than a GDP of 20% of the entire fucking planet out of all nations. Our fraud that we're discovering in just this one state is more than what the GDP is for 20% of the world. That just shows you how ridiculously gullible and unserious we are as a nation. What other nation where it's a policy that I can be in another country and I can scam their country and people can launder the money back to me and there's zero oversight and no one goes to jail. I think America's the unique, only idiot country where this could even happen in. I don't think anyone has laws so lax and we're so open to society that this can happen anywhere else except for here. That is insane. We should be embarrassed.
You have transportation, autism, childcare, daycare, healthcare, and nobody knows what's healthcare because they're not healthcare providers.
You know what? I've read the Quran, and that is correct. It just depends on how you interpret it, but you're right. You know, obviously that's how the Somalis are interpreting it. That's how the people in Dearborn are interpreting it. That's how these other groups that have come into the United States, like the ones in New York, that's how they interpret it. So you're right. That is what they think of. That's what they believe.
So what is the healthcare? They have in-home healthcare.
And so what's the need, for example, for 1,200 transportation companies inside of Minnesota? What's the need for that many transportation?
Well, there isn't. There isn't. You're talking about getting a ride. You already have services that are provided. You have Metro Mobility that offers free rides to seniors and low-income people. And so to have that many non-emergency medical transportation companies, it's not possible that they can transport that many people. I have been to many of these transportation companies, and I've been time-stamping my photographs for a whole year at one facility in Minneapolis. And those vans in that parking lot have not moved 1 inch in an entire year. They're all still sitting there.
And so when you think about it, you have, with the transportation companies, you have the adult care centers. So are they working hand in hand together?
Do me a favor, like the video. Please, if you could, follow the channel. I do all types of videos about different topics every day, but I'm an America First, America Only creator. So I'm going to talk about everything from an America First or right-wing perspective. This is, for us, this is the Holy Grail. Being from Los Angeles, I used to always wonder, why is everything so much more expensive here than it is in the other states? Why is the rent here so much more expensive? Why does food cost more? Why does gas cost more? Why is there so much crime? And why, when you walk into stores, restaurants, malls, go to a car wash, go anywhere, why is there never anyone working besides people that are Mexican or of Spanish descent? Like, you mean to tell me there's no black people that work anywhere? There's no white people that work anywhere? Asians are only having jobs in Chinatown? Why is that? And then you discover that the reason California has been destroyed and has a fake supermajority stranglehold is because of illegal immigration and unwanted migration. And then you look at these other states that are being plowed and overrun and invaded and extorted and exploited also by foreigners and illegals. It's the same thing. These certain states, these blue states, are literally being gutted because these foreigners will come in and they'll support a very select few group of politicians who protect them and run cover for them. They even have the police chief in Minneapolis saying that we are going to protect you from ICE. They even have their mayor speaking fucking Somali. The dude looks like Trudeau and he's speaking Somali, pretending that he likes their food. I mean, it's ridiculous, but they will pander to stay in power. Remember, most politicians, they've never had a job. They don't come from the private sector. All they know is how to beg and grovel because, think about it, you have donors, you have lobbyists. All you know how to do is, I'll say whatever you want me to say, give me money. You stand for nothing. That's why if I ever run for politics, not saying I ever would, because I'd rather just work and be on the outside. But if I ever did, I'd literally just sit here and talk to people all day, every day from the governor's mansion. I would just sit and talk and let people ask questions. And I would literally, but then they wouldn't want somebody like me. I'm not good at keeping secrets. I'm not good at saying, oh, okay, yes. We're going to just make some, I don't care. I don't have a lust for money. I made a lot of money really, really young. And I noticed that, people are happier with less money. It doesn't make you happier. Happiness comes from within. But when these people are coming here from these war-torn countries and they come to the United States, not to become Americans, But to rob Americans, I lose respect for them. I don't care who you are. You could be from my home country. I wouldn't give a shit. I don't like you. If you're not here to be an American, then go the fuck home. But a lot of people get mad because I actually will say this to you directly. I don't feel any type of way about it. I don't feel anything. I'm just being logical. These people are here to rob us. They're not here to join us, which is my problem.
There to then say, we're getting the services from them, the adult daycare centers, to then transport them to their appointments.
So my feeling is this transportation deal is kind of the belly of the beast, because you also have these charter schools, and there's a school in North Minneapolis called Bonadir Academy. It's a K through 12 school. So
wait, are you saying that Nick Shirley looks like a Somalian? I think you gotta get your eyes checked, brother. But I'll be honest, we don't have the resources to individually have 3 to 5 years to try to prosecute every single Somali. That'll take too long, and it would be too tedious. I think it's going to have to do like you said. They're going to have to be profiled. We're going to have to send them all the way back in groups. Another thing that was discovered, I believe, by Christy Nome, is that about 70% of the naturalization, the 70% of the Somalis that have been naturalized were naturalized due to fraud, due to marriage fraud. So they came here and they were like, oh, I'm a citizen now, because they committed the same type of marriage fraud that Ilhan Omar committed. They'll marry their cousins, they'll marry their brothers. And if you go to them and you say, hey, this is your relative, they're going to say, oh, you're racist and you're judging me based on my sexuality. What if I'm into incest? What if that's my thing? Like, are you going to judge me? That's how they use our own kindness against us. They use our own 1964 civil rights. They use it against us. They've studied us. They understand us better than we understand ourselves. We're going to have to turn off all this niceness. It has to go. It has to go with the fraud. So does the niceness. I'll be honest, the United States is going to have to turn into a bunch of New Yorkers. We need to be more like New York and less like Minnesota.
K through 12, so that's 13 years, 13 classes, right? And they say they have 150 students. I found data that they have 136. So that's 10 people per class. If that's it, how is that possible? And they're getting somewhere around $20 to $30 million a year for what?
Bro, that's crazy. You know, somebody in the chat had said that, oh, you're sitting here smearing these people. I have to remind you, the truth can never be seen as a smear. The truth can never be seen as insulting, because now your issues not with what I'm saying, your issues are with reality. And if you have issues with reality, then that says more about you than it says about anything. I'm on the side of righteousness. I'm in the right. I don't have to use my imagination for any of this shit to make sense. But for you to justify crime, you have to close your eyes, wish upon a star, and try to use mental gymnastics to say, well, technically, kinda, and this. No. It's wrong. They are lying to us. They're not owed anything. And why do you want them to have more and live better than you? They're literally taking away what your ancestors and what your people who lived here before you have built. Your birthright is being stripped away from you, and you're not even willing to put up a fight about it. Why? You think you're going to go to jail? Does it seem like anybody's fucking going to jail anymore? We don't even have police. These people aren't even being arrested. We don't have jails. We don't have law enforcement. Not for illegals, not for immigrants, not for Democrats. We're living in the Wild West right now. It's up to us. There's no one coming to save us. Nick Shirley's 23. What if Nick wasn't born? Then who would be sitting here making this video? Nobody. We just still be getting fucked. Aren't you tired of being ripped off by everybody? I travel the country. I go all over the place. Everybody's ripping us off in every city, in all of our big cities, and especially our Democrat-ran cities. I see the American whites and blacks are poor as shit, but these foreigners are sliding through. They're wearing jewelry and expensive glasses, and they're stunting on Americans because they feel an animosity toward us. Remember, 25 years ago, Sally Struthers was literally begging us to give 15 cents a day to these fuckers. 7 cents a day to keep this kid from eating his own shit to live. bones and flies everywhere. That was in the 90s. But 30 years ago, Sally Struthers was over there in Somalia. Oh, my hand. And they had all those fucking sad songs. What year was We Are the World with Michael Jackson? Crying about these fucking Africans. Now the Africans are like, ha, Habibi. Now we look down on you. You look down on, they don't fucking like us. They resent us because we had to help them. So what's their story? Yeah, we got it out the mud. We fought for our independence. We built ourselves up. No, you didn't. You literally lived off of the tears of white people until like 2008, 2009. Then you're able to get to come to the United States. And now you're just fucking us because you're embarrassed about the fact that you needed us. I have relatives like that. I had a relative ask me to help him buy a car. 3 years later, you never helped me do anything. I did that for myself. And these people resent you. It's called being spoiled. That's why I don't believe in helping anybody do shit. Only help people that are willing to help themselves. So as of right now, fuck Sally Struthers. I might as well just put that out there. I blame her for a lot of this. And you know what? If Michael was here, I'd take that goddamn glowing glove off and tell him what he could do with it, because he was the one convincing us that we got to help these fucking fraudsters. I guess hindsight's 2020. Did he know they were going to come over here and just basically exploit and spit in the face of the United States and wipe their ass with our Constitution, which they don't even care about. They don't pay attention to. They don't even speak our language. They have that little respect for us, if any at all. But I'm the bad guy for pointing out that fucking Sally Struthers is the beginning of this. She's the tip of the spear. We have to find Sally. We need to talk to her. She needs some charges brought up against her.
So 130 students, and they're receiving around $20 million.
Or more. Yes.
A lot of these schools are.
Yes.
The fraud here is like exuberant amount of numbers. How about as to how much they're actually enabling to happen here? We went to...
Ooh, Alex, sorry. Had to put you in timeout. You're not allowed to spam the chat.
Fraud committee, and you saw the people. I even confronted one of the ladies myself, and she started to blame the fraud and deflecting it upon how there's fraud everywhere. And she didn't take any accountability. She didn't take responsibility. In fact, she blamed Trump for the fraud that's been happening here inside of Minnesota.
Right. So Kristen Robbins is the chairwoman of the fraud committee, and she was attacked by that Democrat member you were just talking about for not telling that committee about all this fraud. Well, the law said...
No, this is his source right here. And you're right. It's not Nick Shirley. It's just that, okay, before this, Nick Shirley was putting in work. He was the one showing up to the Antifa protests in Portland when they were attacking ICE. He was in LA. He was in Philadelphia. He's in New York. He's literally an investigative journalist. He's been around for a while. I actually discovered him watching Tim Pool talk about him, the disgraced Zionist fucking piece of toilet paper, Tim Pool. I learned about him from them. And now this has just made him a household name. We all know Nick Shirley, and we will forever know Nick Shirley because he's only 23. And unless he's vaccinated, he's going to be around for a long time. And I don't believe they pressed it on his community. So he's going to be here. And that's why we have to follow what he's doing. He's not doing this for the wrong reasons. It's not a get rich quick scheme for him. Just like me, I make content. I talk to people because I want to. Okay, this is my goal. Everyone I met that looks like me in the United States, unless you're like a foreigner, all they do is complain about how horrible this country is. And they do something in English you would refer to as sowing discontent. Do you know how many black people I meet that try to convince me that I should hate the United States? I should hate myself. I should hate white people. I should hate the American flag. I should hate the English language. But they're telling me all this while they're living in the United States under America's protection while speaking English. It's nonsensical, but they do that to everyone. And now there's just so much negativity when you think about being an American. And their goal is to basically demoralize everyone around them. That's why you have to fire them or cut them off. It's just like when you have a job or you work somewhere and there's that one coworker in the break room that's like, don't you hate it here? And they're literally sowing discontent and they're trying to bring down your level, and they want you to be disgusted with the place that's literally supporting you and your family, your job, the place that you should be most grateful and appreciative for being able that hired you to come work there. They want you to hate it. They want you to be, they're very negative people. On a tone scale, they have a very low tone. Those are the kind of people that I make videos to counter. I want to push being appreciative of this country and patriotism. I want to talk about everything my family has is because of this country, who we are, and what this country's been through and how we got to where we are. That's what my goal is, to counter that. But we need more. There's a lot of people coming out trying to counter Nick Shirley, but they can't, because again, you cannot argue with or say nothing bad about the truth, because the truth is just the truth. We need more people doing what I'm doing, talking about how great of a country this is and showing the evidence of such. And if you don't agree, explain to us in a one-page summary of why you're still here, instead of just flying out to somewhere else. You know, the airports are open. There's no, what do they try to say this country is? A fascist nation? Well, if it's, I mean, can you fly out of a fascist nation? Can you just escape fascism? No. Well, as far as I can tell, you're stuck there. You're trapped. You're a prisoner. So that counters that argument right there. If this country is fascist and horrible, why don't you fly the fuck out? We got to ask ourselves that. There's a reason now. These Somalians, now that we're cutting off their hustle, they're going to be leaving. They don't like living in the snow. They hate the snow, and they hate white people, and they hate anything white. Snow is white. So once their money is cut off and that spigot is shut down, they're gone. They're gone. That's another thing. That's how you get people to self-deport. Stop giving them free money to be here. Did you know that they were giving food? They give you an EBT card, but your medical card, you actually get cash on the medical card. That's why they were saying we need to fund healthcare, because that's how they launder money to the people that they pay to stay here. See, you pay to live in America. They're paid thousands to live in America, plus their housing is free. But as an American, you get jack shit. And you're just letting it fly. You're not going to share this video. You're not going to like the video. You're not going to like the channel, because you don't care about your own country. You don't care about yourself. You don't care about your own kids and your own family who's also being ripped off. Remember, you're getting up, you're going to pay rent. It's the first, you just paid rent. These people are being paid to live here and their rent's free. So they're stacking on top of stacking, and you're being gouged. Do you see the difference? But if you do care about those things, like the video, share the content, make people aware of what's happening, because it's going to take a collective effort to make sure this doesn't keep happening everywhere else. We're going to need to find, root out the source of all this and shut it all the way down. Trump's cut funding. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but this is how we make progress. We have these conversations like what Nick is doing.
As in Minnesota, that if you are an elected or public official and you are aware of fraud or suspected fraud, it's Minnesota Statute 3.971.
Hey, Yellow Rain, why don't you go after him your fucking self? Leave here and go after him. Go start your own channel, right? Or go make a video. You go talk about Ron DeSantis. You go be the change you want to see. When I used to have complaints about people on the internet, I got tired. I said, okay, I'll just go do it myself. So you take the same energy that I have, right? And you go talk about whoever you want to. You don't give me suggestions. So I'll suggest that you go follow your own heart's desires and go talk about Ron DeSantis, who's doing an amazing job, obviously, in Florida. So what's there to talk about? I talk about him all the time. The dude is great.
Subdivision 9, that you must report that fraud or suspected fraud immediately to the Office of the Legislative Auditor, the OL.
Thousands of Muslims defrauding us, and you want to talk about one white guy named Brett Favre? You are obsessed with white people. You have a mental issue. Your jealousy and envy betray you. You do know you can fly to a country where there's no white people in charge, right? I don't know why you're not looking up tickets to Nigeria right now. Go home. Go be happy somewhere else. This is not the country for you. You're speaking English. That's a white language from the country of England. There's no way to twist that, okay? Go learn to speak Swahili, move to Kenya, and go rock out. You don't got to worry about American politics no more. You should just give up on all of this. Go home.
And then the OLA decides which law enforcement agency to refer the complaint to.
And they failed to do that.
No, Kristen Robbins did that. She said, I reported it to the OLA, and the Democrat, she had no idea how things work in Minnesota. She was just so enraged about all this fraud getting exposed.
because they don't want to take accountability because the fraud is so blatant. You can go to any of these daycare centers. There are no children anywhere.
Last Saturday, I was in front of the governor's mansion, and I was attacked by 3 Somali men. It's on camera. I made a 911 call. Nobody came to help me. The week before that, I fought off a knife attack. And these people are very violent, and people are afraid of them. The police are even afraid of them. And the police chief is out there telling the public, if you see an ICE agent, call 911. I mean, it's insanity. It's just pure evil. I mean, it's.
Now, let's directly talk about the Somali population because, for instance, you get attacked by 3 Somalians, the police don't come, they're told to call police if they see ICE. How come Somalians have been able to get such a strong foothold here inside of Minnesota, specifically here in Minneapolis?
The reason is that the Somali community is a closed community. What I mean by that is they do not talk to outsiders, and they are ruled with an iron fist by the Somali mafia. And one of those guys.
And remember, the Somali mafia is basically it's called Sababa. It's like Alibaba. There's a terrorist organization in Somalia. They're the ones who control all the Somalians that come here to the United States. They work for them. Even their terrorist organization is an NGO. And what they do is they set up centers all around Somalia, and they recruit Somalians to come to the United States who work for them. And the money that's laundered to them from the United States, they pay the families to come here, and they keep the whatever Democrats are in power, they keep them in power because they are a stable, unified voting bloc. Remember, like he said, they're a closed community. There's no non-Somalians allowed to procreate with you, marry into you. They have no relationships with Americans. But it's not just them. Other ethnic groups in the United States, that's how my people, for the most part, live. We barely started mingling a little bit, but we have our own enclaves as well. There's a little Havana in Miami. We have our communities in Houston. We have our communities in Philadelphia and in other cities, and we don't deal with Americans. Trust me, the only people that are having race issues are blacks and whites. Nobody else is trying to force themselves to be around anyone who's white, and we definitely are trying to avoid anybody black. The only race issues you're going to see are just basically between these 2 groups of people in America. Everyone else kind of just does our own thing. We stay in our own little enclaves. But is that healthy if you're trying to get people to assimilate? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They're not going to have a loyalty to the country. And that's why I say if you love Cubans so much, if you don't want to speak English, you want to live like you're in Cuba, then go back to Cuba. Then you can do what the Cubans do. But if you want to be here in the United States, you're going to have to assimilate, learn the language, do the work. But if this is not where you want to be, then be where you want to be. Just go there.
It's the guy who just got convicted of $7.2 million of fraud, a unanimous jury verdict, and Judge Sarah West overturned the verdict. I couldn't believe it. That was my.
They're in Iowa as well. When did that happen? See? This is insane. Now, I've only been to Des Moines one time. I didn't know Iowa. I've heard about, I know they're doing investigative journalism in Columbus, Ohio, Seattle, Falls Church in Virginia. But I didn't even know about Iowa. But why not the whole Midwest? Why not everywhere? They can get away with anything. As long as they keep their mouths shut like the mob and they like the mafia, just no one's snitching. You can get away with anything in this country. That's insane.
Discovery that all that fraud. I'm the one who got that guy brought before the jury, and then they find him guilty and they let him go. And now you have Keith Ellison who says he's going to appeal the verdict. Well, he's a Muslim. He's going to find a way to screw it up.
So even if they are committed for fraud, that guy, he's committed for how much?
7.2 is what you name.
That is true. There is fraud in all of these. Well, you got to think about it. Certain communities don't believe in hard work. They don't believe in work anymore at all. Since Martin Luther King, they believe the state owes them and the state to solve their problems. We refer to them commonly as statists, but the general term would be a communist, a Marxist. So that's why those communities don't believe in work. And once you do want to believe in work, well, they say you're a white supremacist, but you're just in blackface because you want to pay your bills, go to work, provide for your family. So it's all a lot of mental games in those communities. But if you have that much going on mentally, you're not going to be able to conform and work and be a productive member of American society. You just won't be able to do it. That's why there's so many of them in prison, you know.
Unanimous jury verdict, 7.2 million.
And then they just went ahead and released him.
The judge overturned the verdict. He's walking free as we speak.
How can a judge overturn a verdict? Then what was the point of even having a trial? Why even waste the juror's time? And then why is that judge not immediately arrested after they overturn a verdict, a unanimous verdict by a jury of their peers? This fraudster was convicted of fraud of millions of dollars. And the judge said, yeah, you know what? Because they're corrupt, obviously. They just threw out the conviction, let the guy go. And it's like it never happened. So all the money that went into the investigation, all the money to prosecute, all the time and energy of pulling people from a jury, going to jury duty, it's just demoralizing, because you wonder, like, as an American, why am I doing any of this? Why am I paying taxes? Why am I going to jury duty? Matter of fact, why am I paying taxes if all my money's going towards foreigners? It's not even going towards Americans. I can see if there were Americans that were benefiting from any of these programs. There's like zero, because Americans are too afraid of getting in trouble. But because Americans have a social security card and a birth certificate, you know who they are. You can hold them accountable. There was this one white woman in Minnesota that was caught doing this, but all the Somalians, she went to jail. All the Somalians, they left the country. They can come back. He can leave here as Muhammad Abdul, and then he can return in 3 months with a new beard and be Abdul Muhammad, and you would know none the wiser, and you'll give him a check for a daycare. Like, it's insane that how they're working the hell out of our system.
Still collecting money from the state. And it's federal money too. So we need the feds to come in here, because this is not all state money. There's federal money that's involved here, and it's way beyond anybody's imagination, the total amount. The state.
Yeah, you're right. It's not that easy to go after judges, but it's just like, maybe that's, maybe we have a weird, twisted idea of how secure our country is because of Netflix and TV shows. We don't want to see ourselves as being inherently corrupt. But I don't trust any judges anymore. I've seen more judges my whole life. I've seen judges and law enforcement working together, right? Judges are at the bench, law enforcement pull people over, bring them to the bench, the judge administers sentences, whatever, they work together. This is the first time ever I see police or someone arresting someone and judges trying to get them out of jail. Like, now we're going in different directions because these judges are leftist, Democrat, pedophile ideologues. A lot of these judges are sickos too. They sell kids to the prison industrial complex. They like kids, and I used to see this sometimes where I'm like, how did that pedophile not get life in prison? 2 underage kids making videos. He got like a prison sentence deferment and some kind of where do we live? Well, I didn't know we lived in this type of country. So we have enough problems, but we don't need to compound them with fucking foreigners. We have our own people that we got to deal with. That's why the borders are shut down, and we're limiting or stopping immigration altogether from everywhere.
Doesn't even know. The feds don't even know.
And so, for instance, why would that judge bow down to the head of the Somali mafia here?
What I can tell you is that it's a voting bloc, and what they say is, if you do something to go against our community, we're going to vote for, and they all vote together, and there's ballot harvesting, I've seen them do it, that we're going to vote for your opponent unless you do what we tell you to do.
And so it's all purely for votes.
Yes.
And so this building right here, Cedar Riverside, major, massive apartment complex. How many Somalians do you think live in there, for instance?
Well, this is just one complex. You've got 20 more just like this around the Twin Cities, and they're all Somali. You're talking probably 100,000 or more people, and they're all living rent-free. They're driving a vehicle that you paid for. They're eating food that you paid for.
You know what? Gotta go. You're right. I've seen the little Mexico, but see, that's the thing. Once you're a Mexican, and you move to this country, you are a voting bloc, and you're kind of similar to everybody else. When you're a newcomer to the country, you only talk to your own people, you speak your own language, you're in your community. But once you're 1 or 2 generations in, well, now you're a Chicano. So now you're a Mexican American. So now when the Democrats are thinking you're going to still vote for them, they're like, yeah, I'm not into all the gay stuff and all the mutilation. Now you're no longer a guaranteed solidified voter for the left. So now what they understand, and this is the sauce, you got to keep bringing in new people, because once somebody becomes Americanized, well, obviously they're going to become conservative, because nobody anywhere on earth besides in Canada and in California, no one likes trans kids. There's nowhere on earth that you can go where people are like, oh man, we love gay kids. We want to see a lot of gay kids. I want to see a little boy dancing on RuPaul's Drag Race and doing all those weird, all that fucking shit they do in New York. Nobody wants to see that anywhere. And once you tell people, oh yeah, that's a part of what we're into, so, you know, vote for us. And they're going to be like, yeah, no, fuck off. I don't care if you gave my family welfare 20 years ago and free housing and you helped us avoid immigration enforcement. I don't want my kids to be gay. Nobody does. So then you have to import new people who are just not going to have ask questions. They're just so happy to be here. Then you're just giving them tons of money. They're going to just shut the hell up. But the problem is you only have 15 to 20 years before certain people are going to turn conservative. That's why they have to keep bringing in new. That's why Trump said we have to shut down immigration altogether, because they're not bringing these people over here because they just want to help these people. They're bringing them over here to use them to go against their political enemies. And that's not the right purpose. And now we see what it takes to get them to stay loyal to you. You have to turn a blind eye to them committing fraud against the country and against American taxpayers, which cannot be allowed. If I'm making any sense to you and you agree with what I'm saying, please subscribe to the channel, like the video. My Cash App is right there if you want to continue to the movement. I'm building a media company. That's why I do so much content. I have a co-host who's really just an AI, but me and him talk all the time. He's great. But I'm going to be bringing on guests, and I like to have conversations, you know, but I like to do it in real life. So I'm setting up a studio, so all the donations help. And I'm actually just now barely getting monetized on some of my YouTube channels, but but that only happened because of you guys. I don't know how. I just all of a sudden I got this huge spike in subscribers, and they sent me something about the partnership program or whatever. I'm just grateful you guys are here. And I know it might seem like I'm just going really hard on immigrants, but I'll be honest, you know, fuck these people. It's America first because it's Americans first. But I have to be clear, it's Americans only. I'm not worried about anyone else. If you're looking for me to be a liberal and say, oh, I love everybody, I don't. I just don't. So don't expect that from me. Why did they call me Rico Limbaugh? I'm basically like Rush. People think I'm like, they're like, you sound like Rush. I used to think Rush Limbaugh was great. Even the stuff he said that people called racist. I don't think pattern recognition is racist, because then you would have to say reality is racist because there's a pattern there. Remember what I said earlier? Your problem is with reality, then there's a problem with yourself. It's nothing to do with me and my words. You have a problem with the pattern I'm saying, then I take that up with reality. It's nothing to do with me. But we'll get back to the video, but just think about what I said. If you want to contribute, if you want to spread the message, if you agree with the message, you know, stay tuned in and make sure you like the channel and follow.
Everything they do is something you paid for.
And for instance, that entire block will then go and vote for one specific candidate.
They'll have one person go there and collect all the ballots, and nobody tracks. They could say they have 9 people living in an apartment. They're going to send them 9 ballots. And then they have someone who comes along, collects all the ballots, and they fill them out, and then they deliver them all to the ballot box or wherever they deliver them all at once.
Let me see. Basically what he's saying is this: no matter where you are in the United States, election fraud is legal. It was until Trump took over this year. Election fraud is 100% legal. The reason I say it's legal is because you're not going to be arrested for it, even if you're caught. And here's why. I remember in the 2020 election, of course, I voted for Trump. So I was late getting back to Arizona. I was driving from California. My girlfriend at the time, she had my ballot. So I told her, I said, hey, take my ID and go down to the place and go cast my vote. Take my ballot with you. She gets there and the people reject my ID. They're like, no, we don't want to see it. Just give us the ballot. And she looked like, well, what do you mean? You don't want to verify anything? And they said, no, they don't want to verify. Bro, imagine if you went to a bank and you're like, hey, can you draft me some money out of this account? You see the person that just left, the money in their account, can you pull it out for me? And then you're like, and you're thinking they're going to ask you for ID. And they say, you know what? Sure. Here you go. You'll be like confused. Like, wait a minute. You mean to tell me there's no security in the bank? So if you need an ID to drive, to go to the bank, to do pretty much to fly on an airplane, why wouldn't you need an ID to vote? And it's because fraud is legal. That's why. And you're not going to go to jail. No one's going to get prosecuted. No one's going to get the book thrown at them because we're not a serious country. Hopefully that's going to change this administration, but we shall see. The night is young.
There's no verification. Nobody's doing anything to know if these people are even citizens that are voting.
Kicking granny, your granny deserves to be kicked. Just wanted to say that.
And how well have they integrated into society here?
Not at all. It's either you do things their way or you're a racist, you're an Islamophobe, and you will be attacked. My life's been threatened many times. I've had people tell me, just stop doing what you're doing. They're gonna take you out. And I can't do it because everybody says somebody ought to do something about that. I'm that somebody. I'm the guy who's doing something about it.
What led you to want to do this where you're so passionate about it?
Somebody who's willing to sacrifice his own life and the friendship with his own family to do the right thing. We have a word for that here in the United States. The word is a hero.
Where you've done your own investigation. If you were working for the government, you'd be called a whistleblower. Thankfully, you're a whistleblower in your own way as far as you're coming out with the information, with the numbers. When we went to all the daycare centers, you had the numbers specifically as to how much money these people have been receiving at these daycares. And there wasn't a single daycare inside of the Minneapolis-St. Paul area that wasn't receiving at least $1 million.
Yes.
As Americans, we are all in the wrong line of work. And apparently with some of these daycares, they'll give you $1 million even if you only have a capacity of 3 kids. So you mean to tell me, like since when? I thought daycares had to be paid for by parents. Isn't that what child support is for? So why is the government giving money to daycares when child support is supposed to cover supporting kids because you have to do private pay? I don't understand that part. Like, why are some daycares getting money from the government and other ones are on their own? Like, what makes these Somalians and these illegals, what makes them so special? Why are they better than us Americans to the point where they can get American money, but we're not allowed to? We're barred from it. And it's actually improper to even ask for government assistance for your business. But these Somalians, it's up. It's crazy. The SBA just had to recently cut off the money they were giving. Bro, do you know how many times I've literally tried to get money or get approved from the SBA? And literally, there's always one little thing that they use as an excuse and they shut you down as an American. But yet you can be a foreigner to come over here with sandals full of dust, no English, no history, no credit, no nothing. And they're just like, please, they're fighting. They're giving money to you hand over fist. They don't want it in. They don't want any money back. They give it to you in grants. Like, why do they like these people so much more than they like us Americans? Like, that's something we have to start asking questions about. A lot more questions.
So we hit 3 of the top. And so when you're talking about money going to the daycare, we were looking just specifically at CCAP money, which is child care assistance payments. And the one daycare we went to on Chicago Avenue that said they had 102 children, they got $3.6 million in fiscal year 2025. And in 2024, they got $2.8 million. And how many kids did we see there? 0. In fact, we didn't see a single child at any of the child care facilities. And that's the way they all are every single day.
And I want to keep going in about how Somalia has gained such a stronghold of this area of Minnesota. They're building mosque block to block in St. Cloud. That's just about an hour away from Minneapolis. And here in Minneapolis and St. Paul and the Twin Cities, you have entire apartment complexes where there are not a single white Caucasian living inside.
Right.
And then you also have, I've heard in Rochester, it's pretty bad as well. But how did they come in and then expand to the point where they kicked out everybody from a college area to where the point where they have now the apartment complex? How have they expanded so much here inside of Twin Cities areas?
It's because they all stick together. They all sing the racist Islamophobe mantra over and over and over. They'll lie. They'll say you assaulted them. They'll do all these things until eventually they force people out. Right up the road from us is Palmer's Bar. It opened in 1906. I used to go there because you could drink when you were underage, and I went to the U of M, say, hey, you can have a beer. And that place was legendary. And what happened was the residents who live in that building right behind us filed so many false reports against patrons of that bar.
You know, it's crazy. If these people are so incredible, if these people are not credible, why are you listening to them? I know if I thought somebody was really not credible, I wouldn't give them the time of day. I wouldn't listen to shit they were saying. But I notice you guys keep saying that about Candace Owens, yet you're watching her content. I know you guys might say that about Nick Shirley. You might say that about myself. I've seen them say that about Mr. Let Go and, Ian Carroll and these different people. But yet you're watching our content. I don't waste my time watching content that I don't find credible. So I don't know. I think that you're saying one thing, you're doing another. You remind me of my ex-girlfriend. Let's go out for drinks.
In the bar itself, that the city went to the owners of Palmer's Bar and said, look, you either shut down voluntarily or we're going to drag you through and we're going to make you spend a lot of money and we're still going to shut you down. So
my ex-girlfriend's in the chat, so I'm taking shots at her all night. Love you, babe, but I hate you.
Well, that bar has been shut down, and now they're going to turn it into what? Another mosque.
So they push out what used to be Minnesota staples, such as Palmer's Bar, and now that bar is turning into a mosque.
There's a mansion over on 24th and Park Avenue, historic building. They bought that. They're turning that into a mosque. They're building another brand new mosque not far away. And it's like when you're in a dream and there's something really bad happening to you and you're screaming and all these people are walking by and nobody hears you. That's what I live every day. That's my life every day. But I'm committed to doing what I can to end this. I just want it to stop.
And how have you seen the weaponization of the word racist and Islamophobe take power here?
It's incredibly powerful, and it's
powerful for people that are seriously concerned about wanting other people to like them. So this is how we manipulate white people when you're not white. First things first, you lie to them and tell them that they're privileged when they literally don't have any more rights or any more access than you do. The only difference between you and white people is, well, typically they have two of their parents around. And so really your issue is with your parents. It's not with white people. You're just envious and jealous of their family structure. Personally, my parents were married. I don't have those sentiments, but a lot of people hate white people because they usually have two parents in their household. That's the privilege they're referring to. So once you convince someone for years, you just beat it in their head that you're better than everybody. And it's like, why are you hyping me up? First, you're telling me that I'm privileged. Now you're calling me a white supremacist. So you're calling me supreme, like I'm a supreme being. I mean, that it requires an inferiority complex of the person saying it to believe any of this. But then you put them on this pedestal, but then all of a sudden you go from complimenting them, calling them supreme, calling them privileged, to now you're saying, actually, you're a racist. And you're this and you're that. And then these people are like, oh, no, I don't want to get off my pedestal. You hype me up so much. I kind of like being up here. And now they're afraid of losing that. So they're not going to do anything that's going to run the people who have been complimenting them all these years. They don't want to rub them the wrong way. And that's how you manipulate someone. That's how you do it. You hype them up at first, and then you threaten to tear them down. And they're so used to being up there and being complimented. Personally, I'm not used to compliments, and I don't want them, especially unnecessary ones, because if anyone's being a little bit too nice to me, if I go to a strip club and there's a stripper over there that's a little bit too interested in how my day went, I'm like, I'm going to go broke if I keep talking to her because she keeps pretending she likes me. I know you really don't like me, but some guys are thinking maybe I just got lucky. And next thing you know, he loses everything in his account and his girlfriend at home. So that's how manipulation works. This is just how it works on a coordinated scale for your target demographic. These people hate America, but they see the white family as the backbone of America. So if you want to destroy America, you have to destroy the psyche of the white family. Feminism has taken away the wives of white families, and the gay push has taken away the children from the white family. And they've really just isolated white men. And now they're trying to tear them down with words. When I tell you this is a coordinated assault, And I can give you all the details because it's blatantly obvious. It doesn't really take a rocket science. I'm just able to clearly articulate it to you in a way that's easy to understand. And if it's hard for me to understand it, it's hard for you to understand me because of my accent or whatever, then I'll let my friend Arthur explain it to you. That's why I have him as a co-host. But let's continue.
All I can describe it as evil. It is an evil that has taken hold here, and it's permeated all of our society. And the people in Minnesota, they just want to stick their head in the sand and pretend it doesn't. Somebody will do something about it. They don't have to do anything, or it's not going to affect them. And they don't. In their mind, they want to redecorate the upstairs bedroom when there's a massive crack in the foundation that's allowing all this water and dirt and everything to get in there. And they're worried about the upstairs bedroom. It's insanity.
And real quick break from the interview to tell you guys about the sponsor of this video, Opus Clip. What?
You know what? That is a good sponsor. I use Opus Clip. If they offer, actually, I do ad reads. I might let them know they can contact me because I actually use their clip thing every day. When you go to my channels, you see thousands of videos on my Instagram. A lot of that's all Opus Clip for the most part. So I will do it. They're actually a good company, and it's worth the money in my opinion.
Right here, this is going to be Somali World Headquarters outside of Somalia, Minneapolis. And don't you know, the state flag of Minnesota was changed from this beautiful historic flag to the flag that is almost exactly the same as the flag of Somalia.
Well, Tim Waltz said your old flag was racist.
Yeah, it was a farmer with a plow horse.
So Tim Waltz is a self-hating Caucasian person that was extremely empathetic to the Somalian cause, or was he just playing a role to get those votes and stay in power? It seems like people don't have any loyalty to the country. They are just loyal to power. And that is the definition of evil. Historically, that's what's been the definition of evil.
That's racist. Why? Because it's somebody working? That's racism.
Tim Waltz, he's an interesting man. He's enabled a lot of this fraud to happen.
And God bless you too. Upgrade America first, America only.
Underneath him. Was the fraud happening before Tim Waltz as well?
Well, likely yes, it was, because he's going for his third term as governor. So Tim Walz is from Nebraska. He was a teacher. He lied about getting a Nebraska Chamber of Commerce award. He lied about his military service. Everybody.
How can you be from Nebraska and become the governor of Minnesota? Like, I can just become a governor of another state, even if I don't really live there. Like, are there any restrictions? Why in my brain do I think that you have to have all these requirements? Apparently, you can just do whatever, whenever, wherever you want to. Nothing matters, apparently. There's no standards for anything. So, I don't know. I think as Americans, we need to just become more aware that we can do more than we even think we can do. We need to realize that. Because if Tampon Tim can do it, and he's missing a chromosome, then the rest of us are a shoe-in. I promise.
He's scared to death now that this fraud has been exposed, and he's scrambling. And he has a press conference on gun control. I go, what are you, gun control? You got $100 billion of fraud, and you're going to talk about people not walking around with machine guns?
It's crazy. 18 billion in fraud is more than 20% of the world's GDP. 20% of the countries on earth do not have a GDP of 18 billion. And that's how much fraud we're having in just a couple of states in the Tri-City area. It's insane. When I think about how this is all playing out, I'm embarrassed. It just shows us that we're weak. We're militarily strong, but if you can just get past our military, we're like silly putty. We're just mushy and just soft.
What is it? The 1920s?
And inside these apartment complexes, not just Cedar Riverside, how do they force, because this one right here, you only see Somalians. How do they force any other race, white, Asian, black, Mexican, how do they make it so that these apartment complexes are only their apartment complex?
So there are a couple of ways they do it. One is to incessantly harass any non-Somali tenant so that they have to move out.
I've seen this happen in California, in MacArthur Park, in certain parts of downtown LA. There were certain apartment buildings. If you were not Latino and spoke Spanish, if you were white or you were like some sort of European or Asian, They would literally make you so uncomfortable living there, and they would force you to leave out, and they would give a rent break to another person from their own background who speaks Spanish. And literally, that's how they just take over entire areas. Like, people don't understand. They talk about integration. It's forced most of the time. Most people just kind of want to be around their own people. And but it's not fair, because if you're supposed to be equal and the color of your skin shouldn't matter, you shouldn't be able to push out people you don't like so that you can get away with doing more crime. Because if there's nobody who's not from your group around, then guess what? There are no witnesses. And that's a problem. That's why this is like organized crime. That's why I said it's a mafia.
Or they file false complaints, multiple complaints against someone until they're evicted. The city will come in, if it's a city-owned building, if it's income housing, and they'll evict that person, and then the Somali moves in. And that's how they've been doing it all around the Twin Cities. Folks, I'm just telling you, as bad as you think it is, it's 10 times worse. You'll never see anything like this. If you went to any country around the world, you'll never see anything as bad as it is right here in Minneapolis.
So for instance, say I were to move inside and got myself an apartment over in Cedar Riverside, and I started listening to music a little too loud or watching a movie too late at night, and somebody next door had a baby, and they said that was just too much a noise complaint. Would they call you a racist, or how would they get you out of the apartment?
Yeah, they would say you harassed them, you threatened them, you assaulted them. It's something that their mindset is that they don't care as long as they can get their way. They don't care what happens to anybody else.
Yeah, that's true. It is, equality is fantasy. That's why they don't use that word anymore. They use equity. That means they want everyone to be equally poor, not equally rich. They want you to be equally poor. The problem is, in the United States, because you have freedom, you have freedom to work as much as you want. But but technically, you also have the freedom to work as little as you want. If you want to, you're free to go live on the streets and be homeless. But then you have people that are going to consider you as part of that you're oppressed, or even though being homeless is a lifestyle choice the same way being gay is. You literally choose to be homeless. You choose to go to the Abbey in West Hollywood. You choose to do these things. It's a lifestyle choice. I don't agree with the gay lifestyle. I really don't agree with the homeless lifestyle. But I don't judge the gay people for men wanting to rub mustaches. I don't judge these people for wanting to sleep outside. I remember I was walking to my car a couple years ago back in LA, and right outside the gate where I parked my expensive ass car in this expensive ass building, there's all these like older guys just kind of hanging around, just chilling in a beautiful California day. And one of them was like, "How much do you pay to live here?" And when I told him, he was like, "I feel sorry for you." The fucking homeless guy said that. And he made the point that, him and I are neighbors. Even though he sleeps outside in a tent, we share the same local amenities. And I'll be honest, for a while, I started wondering, like, which one of us is crazy, me or him? Because he makes a really good point. Also, his tent was featured on the news. He had one of those hot tubs in there. He was one of those guys with, that was running electricity from the pole. Don't get me wrong. Eventually, his tent caught on fire. He had a grease fire and it burned down. But for the time being, he really made me look at myself a little bit different. But the thing is, again, you have freedom to work as much as you want or as little as you want. And that's why there's always going to be discrepancies. Everybody's not going to be equally one way or the other, because we have the choice on how much we want to do or not to do with ourselves and our time. And I don't know why people want to pretend like they don't have that option. We all do.
Who's not a Somali. And they have warring factions within the Somali community, because this is such a cash grab that they're fighting them. There are factions within the Somali community that are fighting amongst each other.
Sorry, M. Gant. I'm just being honest. I wish I could sit up here and lie to you guys. I'm just talking like it's just me and you sitting here. For all I know, it is just us. There's no one else here. So we're just having candid conversation as friends, right?
So do you think right now in Somalia, people know if they make their way to Minnesota, they'll be able to get $1 million?
Absolutely. Everyone knows it's wide open. It's the Wild West.
Appreciate it, David.
Because I say $1 million because every place we went to and where we have gone, everything is above $1 million. Like, it's not just like a $500,000. It's not just what would be a great salary of $60 to $100,000 for a single person. It's literally millions of dollars. It's not a joke when you say that these people are becoming millionaires just from getting money from the government.
So think about it. You get up and you go to work every day and you make 50, 60,000 and you work like crazy. Some of you work two jobs, 3 jobs. They're not working at all. And they're getting new free cars, free housing, free food, everything.
So are you saying that for me to attain the American dream, I have to become Somalian? Like, what does that mean? What are you teaching people? And that's why I said, I'll be honest, I'm not paying taxes this year. I'm not filing. Let them come after me. I'm just going to make my stand. I'm just not doing it. I'm not going to participate anymore. Why? Why? So my fucking money can be given to some inbred Somali with fucking Jordan open-toe sandals? They don't even have Jordan open-toe sandals. They're custom. He made Jordan stitch them himself. That's how much money this fucking Somalian got for a fake daycares that he could afford to make Michael Jordan go into a sweatshop. Tall as hell, bald, old. He put Michael in a sweatshop, had Michael sew Jordan sandals. Custom. Now, Americans can't afford to do that. Because why? Because all our money is going towards these fucking Somalians. So because of that, I'm just going to abstain. I'm abstaining for a while.
It's completely out of control here. I need the federal government to come in here and put a stop to this because
Bro, we already seen the evidence. We literally went to the locations and videotaped it. If you don't believe in video evidence, then you don't believe in evidence at all. That means you can see somebody commit a murder and say, but how do you know that that person really died? What if their soul left their body and their pulse stopped, but they were born again into a dog? Technically, they're still alive. So you're a person that would literally rationalize bullshit like that. So because of that, we're going to ignore you. So, but we're gonna humor you, but we're gonna use you as an example. You're not blocked, you're not cut off, but we're going to use an example of, you don't lose a chromosome like Tim Walsh or this guy and say ridiculous shit like this. We don't do it. Be better than this. But we need you here to make an example. So don't go anywhere. Keep talking.
Political will in Minnesota is not here to do it.
And because that money that they receive what are they? Are they grants? Are they relief? What are the money?
The IRS did not do shit about all this Somali fraud before Trump. The IRS is impotent. The IRS hates Americans. They love illegals and they love foreigners. They just don't like Americans. They are targeting Americans. They're not going after these Somalians. These Somalians is rich as fuck. And nobody from the IRS is kicking in their doors. Even before the daycares were audited, their books would have been audited by the IRS. Why weren't they? So obviously the IRS is impotent as well. Or it's just another organization like the FBI, where until Trump took over, they were only targeting Americans. They're not looking for terrorist groups, not looking for anybody. They're looking for Americans, and especially Americans that go to these school board meetings or that have questions about scandals in the country or election fraud, or Americans that just showed up on January 6th to the People's House to peacefully protest and show support to our politicians and hope they made the right decision that day. Yeah, that's what they used our FBI for, to target Americans, old ladies, grandmas, people with trespassing charges. So yeah, I don't want to hear about the feds or the IRS. I have like zero faith in any of them.
Yeah, they get. What do they label that as?
Well, so interesting you brought up grants because that's a whole nother. So they have a thing called Minnesota Deeds, DEEDS grants. And I looked at the list of grants that were just issued this year, and they're about 75% Somali owned. So those are more money they're just giving them, and they're not even tracking what's being done with the money. They fill out a form saying, we're going to use it for this. Nobody follows up. So you've got childcare, you've got transportation.
What are those? What's that money labeled underneath that one that says, for instance, when $1 million is sent to a childcare? Is that?
By the way, you guys might want to start taking notes. I know I am, because this is them telling us exactly how the Somalians are doing the fraud. Think about it. What if you do the exact same thing as the Somalians, except you actually do the business? You take in kids, you market, and you sign people up for healthcare. What if Americans, right, copy what the Somalians are doing, but instead of having fake kids and doing fake business, what if this is a novel idea. Not saying it's this is novel. Let's say we just do the actual business and we don't even scam, but we apply for all the same funding. Let's see if we can get some of the same results and do better.
Money labeled as what would it be?
Well, it's a number of things. It's CCAP, which is childcare assistance payments. It's SNAP benefits. It's learning. So they separate it as learning. So we're learning. So we're not just a childcare. We're teaching them something. So there are all these separate payments that are going in. So there's no one label because it's coming in from all these for all these different things, but it's all coming from the Department of Human Services.
And it's crazy. I'm actually working. I'm going to be doing some more stuff in healthcare. And I'm literally, but it's different in every state. In California, we have a different name than we have in Arizona. But you can do this in your own state. You can offer services, and the government will subsidize some of them. The others are going to be private pay. I'm just a tech guy. I'm used to working on a computer, but I want to be more hands-on. But I didn't know that it was actually this easy to get into. You can even be a foreigner with no identity and literally barefoot, flies everywhere, and you can get money, and you can just literally do business. You can do fake business. But what if you want to do real business as an American? You should have the same access, even without the flies. Or maybe flies around you everywhere is the sauce. Maybe without the flies, the government's not going to trust you or take you seriously. Maybe that's the difference between us and them. It's the flies. We got to consider everything. I don't know. You can't say it's not the flies. Maybe you can't say it is, but you really can't rule out the flies. That could be a big part of this.
And so with that money, say they get $1 million into the daycare, will they have to pay taxes on that $1 million? Or is that tax-free money?
Well, so what's funny is that KSTP just came out and published a story that said Somalis are the economic engine that's driving Minnesota, that they paid $76 million or something in tax. And I just laughed. I said, what? They're an economic benefit to Minnesota? But that's what I'm fighting every day, is a media that is completely on the Somali side. And I don't understand why people have this mindset. It's evil. We're trying to fix our state. And you look at the long game on this. You say, well, what is the end result of this? The end result of this is that this becomes Somalia.
I mean, they already planted their flag here, essentially.
They literally planted their flag at the Capitol. It's a flag of Somalia, literally.
But do they pay tax?
It's crazy. I've seen another country's flag go up in only a couple of places. And it's because we've been invaded. And they've literally taken over those cities. I remember when I was in Dearborn, Michigan, and I'd seen the flag of like these Arabic countries. I've seen different ones, and I was like thinking, okay, maybe it's a holiday or something or whatever. No, they invaded. They took over. They're just not as vocal as the Somalians, but they're all from the same region, Northern Africa, Middle East. They're all under the control of the globalists, and they're all looking to invade the United States. And they've already successfully invaded Europe. They've invaded Australia. So there's not that many other former countries under the Commonwealth that have not been invaded. Canada's long gone. So I think we're all that's left. This is the first pushback. This is why I have people that are watching my channel in Berlin, people that are watching my channel in Stockholm, people that are watching my channel in Edinburgh and in the UK and in Melbourne and in the Gold Coast. Is because they don't have the freedom of speech in these other English-speaking countries, right? So they can't talk about this on the internet like I can. So I'm speaking for them. I'm speaking on behalf of people that cannot speak for themselves. They're adults in other first world countries, but they don't have a First Amendment, and they don't have a Second Amendment to make sure that you never take away our First Amendment. They don't have that option. They're getting knocks on the door for even thinking about having some of the conversations that I'm having. So that's why I appreciate them tuning in, because I'm making these episodes for you as well. These are the things you guys can't say, but it's happening to you. It's happening right now outside your door. You're watching your country and your heritage be rinsed away right into the gutter of history. And now to the point they're saying, I think King Arthur and the Round Table were from Sudan. And they're like redoing it. King Arthur, the Round Table, it's a bunch of black dudes with hairlines starting back here, riding horses on open-toe sandals, but they're wearing the metal sheets and the swords. And I just don't believe it. I don't think that was accurate. I just don't. But they can rewrite history now, because if you contradict them or counter them, you can be arrested in these countries. So we're speaking when we're in the United States and we're literally talking for everyone. We represent everyone because they cannot represent themselves anymore. We're lucky. So that's why I have to make this content. I have to keep making it. I can't stop.
On that money they receive from the government when they get sent to their daycare, when they get sent to their adult daycare, when they get sent to their transportation companies?
Handle me this. I would say, I don't know. I've never called anybody supreme. And I don't know. I don't think the KKK I don't think they're as effective as me, just because I've never seen their results. I know what the Crips and Bloods can do. I know what Gangster Disciples and Vice Lords can do. I know what Latin Kings and Tren de Agua and Say Trece. I know what these ethnic gangs can do. I've seen their results. I've never seen the KKK do anything. They seem impotent. So I'll be honest. I really, neither one of them can compare to me, unfortunately. I'm way worse. So I'm glad you're tuning in. Thanks for the support. You're supporting somebody worse than the KKK. Congratulations.
They're paying a different rate, if they're paying any at all. And a lot of it is being redirected. So there's stories that they're funding al-Shabaab. And so this money typically doesn't go directly back to Somalia, the money they send back.
Oh yeah, handle me this. You're welcome. You're welcome.
They'll send it through Saudi Arabia. They'll send it through Kenya, because then it's not a direct link from the Somalis here back to Somalia. So they're routing it through a third party.
So that's
called laundering. We call that money laundering, when you're running money through a third party to obfuscate being discovered. When you're trying to hide it, you're smuggling. That's laundering.
Different thing about them funding al-Shabaab and terrorist organizations. But I want to get to my point. It's
not Alibaba. It's al-Shabaab is the terrorist organization. That is the NGO that organizes recruiting families from Somalia to relocate to the United States to expand their empire and to strengthen their politicians while they're empowering themselves. That's how they're expanding. Al-Shabaab.
Is that money that they are getting from the government, will they eventually pay tax on that, or is that just tax-free money essentially?
I don't know. I can't get any of the tax records from the state.
Because, for instance, if me or you make $1 million, we're going to be given 40% back to the government.
At least. If you live here, you're going to pay probably 50%.
Yeah. So if they get $1 million, they aren't getting taxed on that, most likely, especially if it's as just a loan, not even a loan. It's just money that they're giving to the daycare to take care of. It's not government benefit.
To my understanding, it's not considered income. Yeah. Because it's an assistance payment.
And so that's why they are doing all these businesses that are based off of assistance for daycare, for adult daycare, for transportation, because they're getting money for these companies. You can label them as assistance versus being for profit.
Listen to what they're saying. They're giving you the sauce. If you want to make the money that these illegals and these foreigners are making, you have to do it a certain way. Opening up a business saying that you're a daycare is one thing. Opening up a service saying that I'm an assistant, I do daycare assistance, is another. You have to look into this. I'm looking into this because I'm tired of all the illegals and the foreigners with the Jordan open-toe sandals that are custom made by Jordan. I'm tired of seeing them run all these laps around Americans. Like, people want to say America doesn't have the talent because we're not too bright, but then we let these people run laps around us. Maybe you think Trump's right? What if that's true? Because if we can't figure this out, then what can we figure out? If we can't figure out how to not let these illegals run daycares and steal money from us, then how can we build bombs and batteries? Maybe there's some credence there. Maybe that's what he's talking about. Because does it require that much of a talent to walk into a building with a camera phone like Nick Shirley and say, "Hey, is this even a real business? Does that take a rocket scientist?" I don't think so. But yet they say Americans are lazy because we're not doing anything. So maybe Trump's right. I hope he's not. Let's prove him wrong. But I mean, it's not looking good right now.
Correct. That's exactly right.
And let's talk about Al-Shabaab and the money that's being allegedly sent to these terrorist organizations in Somalia.
The money they send back, they'll send it through Saudi Arabia, they'll send it through Kenya, because then it's not a direct link from the Somalis here back to Somalia. So they're routing it through a third party.
So that's a whole different thing about them funding Al-Shabaab and terrorist organizations. But I want to get to my point. It's like, is that money that they are getting from the government, will they eventually pay tax on that, or is that just tax-free money essentially?
I don't know. I can't get any of the tax records from the state.
Because, for instance, if me or you make $1 million, we're going to be given 40% back to the
Or more.
government. At least.
If you live here, you're going to pay probably 50%.
Yeah. So
yeah,
if they get $1 million, none of they aren't getting taxed on that, most likely, especially if it's as just a loan. Not even.
How old do you have to be to know how things work in government and in society? Because what you're saying is that being over 18 doesn't make you an adult. You don't know anything. So at what age do you have to be before you know that you're being ripped off? How old are these Somalians that are over here ripping us off? How old do you think they are? Do you even know how old they are? Do you care? What does it matter how old he is? If he's talking about that he lives in this country, shouldn't we all by 23 years old, 22, 21, shouldn't we all understand how the systems and things work? So how old are you trying to say he should be before he knows what he's talking about? And is knowing what you're talking about, is that based off of age or based off of you reading and learning and experience? Are you saying you just wake up at 38 years old and now magically just know everything? Or can you be 21 years old, but because you study, you read, and you've learned how things work, you'll be more educated about certain topics than people 3 times, 4 times your age? I mean, which one is it?
Even alone, it's just money that they're giving to the daycare to take care of. It's not government benefit.
To my understanding, it's not considered income.
Yeah.
Because it's an assistance payment.
And so that's why they are doing all these businesses that are based off of assistance for daycare, for adult daycare, for transportation, because they're getting money for these companies. You can label them as assistance versus being for profit.
Correct. That's exactly right.
Now let's talk about Al-Shabaab and the money that's being allegedly sent to these terrorist organizations in Somalia. Spoke to a man who, he's also a whistleblower who used to work for the police department inside of the airport. He said every single week, literally millions.
You said, I don't care. You spelled Somalian people wrong. You spelled Somalian with the W. You got to use an S.
Millions of dollars worth of cash would be funneled through the airport, through TSA here in Minnesota, at the Minneapolis airport. How are they moving the money from Minnesota, from the taxpayer of Minnesota, back into these Somalian-run businesses, into the hands of people like Al-Shabaab, who are linked with Al-Qaeda? So
anyone who travels knows that if you have over $10,000 in cash, you're going to get stopped by TSA, and they're going to want to know, where did this money come from? And if you're a couple traveling together, they're going to combine the money that you're carrying and say, okay, what is the total amount that you're carrying?
That's insane. I literally was talking about this in a video about a week ago, about how if it could be over 5,000, if you're caught with a substantial amount of cash, the police will stop you at the airport and they'll write you a receipt and they will confiscate your money. It's called, I forgot what it's called when the police do it. Matter of fact, let's just so you guys can look up the word. Let's hear. Hey, Arthur, what's the word for if you're at the airport and you have a bunch of cash on you and the police stop you and they confiscate your money and then they write you a receipt and you have to go to court about it? What is that called? I forgot what it's called.
What you're describing is commonly known as civil asset forfeiture. In other words, when law enforcement officers at an airport or any checkpoint take possession of a large amount of cash because they suspect it can be tied to illegal activity, that's a form of civil asset forfeiture. They'll issue you a receipt, and you typically have to go through a legal process to attempt to get your money back.
Hey, quick question. Can you look up, they were finding Somalians that had millions of dollars in their carry-on cases in their luggage, and they were flying out of Minneapolis, St. Paul airport to the Middle East and Somalia. How are they able to take that much cash in their carry-on and fly out of the country? How are they able to do that without having to go through asset forfeiture the way us Americans would have?
Sure. In short, what you're describing is indeed a scenario of civil asset forfeiture. In the United States, when someone is carrying a large sum of cash, like those travelers flying out of Minneapolis St. Paul Airport, the police can seize that money if they suspect it might be linked to illegal activity. The travelers then get receipts and typically have to go to court to try to get their money back. It's a common legal process under US law, and yet it can happen regardless of the traveler's nationality. In other words, it's not about bypassing forfeiture, it's that this legal mechanism applies to anyone carrying large amounts of cash under suspicion.
Well, no, I'm asking, how did those people, those Somalian guys, how were they able to fly out with millions of dollars in their carry-on and not get stopped by the police and not have that money confiscated? How were they able to get through? How were they able to get away with that?
So, in summary, here's what we know. There have indeed been reports of individuals carrying large sums of cash, sometimes reportedly in the millions, through Minneapolis St. Paul International Airport. The reason they might not face confiscation often comes down to the legal process. It's legal to carry large amounts of cash if you declare it properly and can show it's from a legitimate source. In other words, if the travelers filled out the required declaration forms and no immediate criminal link was established, law enforcement may not have had grounds to seize the money. Essentially, the presence of cash alone isn't illegal and may need probable cause to connect it to a crime to justify confiscation.
That's so weird, because when it comes to dealing with Americans, they have asset forfeiture. But when these are foreigners, they're allowed to travel with that much cash, and they can just fill out a simple form to declare that the money came from somewhere legit, but they don't have to tell you where it came from or where they got it from. And they're able to just fly out of the country, while us Americans are literally held hostage. And it takes us a year or more of going to court just to get back money that we've legally earned. And it's not like we were committing a crime when they confiscate our money at the airport or on the side of the highway. We were just traveling, and we have our money forfeited in asset forfeiture. But these international foreigners that are traveling around committing fraud, they're able to just slide right through with no issues. Like, it's insane to me. But thank you, Arthur, for your help.
And I talked with a TSA agent who worked at the Minneapolis airport, and there was a Somali man who came through with 2 suitcases. And he put on his declaration that he had $750,000 in cash. And so the TSA agent said, whoa, wait a minute here. And so they took him to a secure room. They opened up the suitcases. Sure enough, $750,000 in cash. And so she called the police. The police came. And then the officer said, well, I've never had this before. This is such a large amount of money. He said, where'd this money come from? The guy said, I don't have to tell you. I don't know. And so he called his superior, and his superior said, okay, I got to make a call and I'll get back to you. And then he called him back and said, you got to let him go, because he declared the money. He goes, no, we can't let it. So they're not even verifying where these funds came from. And so how deep does this go? How many people are involved? How bad is this?
Because, I mean, how does somebody acquire $750 in cash? For instance, you can't even go to the bank right now and ask them for $100,000. You'd have to go through a big process to get that much money in cash.
Exactly. Banks don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars on tab. You have to literally order that money from a mint, and then it has to be delivered to your bank. So that's the only thing I can think of. But where are they getting all this cash? And then the fact that they're allowed to fly it out of the country, it's not even being spent here. That's why we said our resources are being siphoned away from us. They're literally taking our money and sending it other places. It's not even being recycled here in the United States.
The only way that they could be acquiring this much money is through running a daycare, for instance, where they're literally receiving anywhere from $1 million to $3 million.
And so one thing to keep in mind is that Somalis will not pay tax, because tax is something that is reserved for them to impose on others. So they will not pay tax. So when they're buying these $1 million homes and these brand new SUVs and going to Costco and loading up their carts, they're paying with cash, or they're using their EBT card, which is typically loaded with $5,000 a month. So on top of, it's like pouring syrup on top of chocolate. I mean, where does it stop?
So they're using cash instead of like a card, for instance, through Chase Bank.
Well, so they're walking into car dealerships with $100,000 in cash, 120. Here you go, I'll give cash. And these dealers are supposed to be reporting that to the IRS because it's more than $10,000, and they have to track where the money came from. And they haven't been doing that because why? And the guy's going to walk in and give me cash, and of course I'm going to take it. So there are a lot of people who are complicit in this fraud, and there are a lot of people who are going to be called to answer for what they've done.
Now, let's talk about people like Ilhan Omar and her influence here on the Somali community. What influence does she have on what happens here?
Well, she's a key reason that we have so many Somalis here. She was a big proponent of drawing them in because once she realized how loose the regulations were here on all of this money, this welfare money, this assistance payments, she started bringing the Somalis in, and they came in from all around the country. So not only were they coming from Somalia, they were coming from Texas and Florida and New York and everywhere else, because the word went out, you got to come to Minnesota because it's open season here. And so that's why, and they're still coming here, and they're still gonna get money. And so Ilhan Omar is, I mean, she's the godmother of the Somalis.
And so whatever she says goes.
Yes.
And you keep referring that Somalians don't move alone. If one of them moves, 10 of them move.
Yes.
So that's how they're able to multiply and almost compound here as far as their populations.
And so the idea is that they want to repopulate as quickly as possible. So that's why all these Muslim women you see, they're always pregnant all the time. Because when you have all these children, now you can start to overtake a city, a society, and now you run for school board, you run for office. We had a Somali guy, I couldn't believe he didn't get elected mayor of Minneapolis, but Jacob Fry, who was elected mayor, he's even worse. He bows down to the Somalis. He tries to speak their language. It's embarrassing.
And
it is embarrassing. Look, we're halfway through this video, but we're an hour and 40 minutes in. I'll be back on in about 30 minutes. We're probably going to finish out the video, and then I have like 3 other topics to go over. So we're going to be doing different lives all night. Do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like the video. I'll be back on. I appreciate you guys and all the channels. We're streaming live on 8 different platforms right now. So I appreciate you all for being here. I'm going to respond to the other comments, and I'm going to also tell you, everybody, thank you for sending in those cash apps. I haven't been able to check them because it's on my computer, it's not on my phone. But once I end this, I'm going to check it again. And I've already seen them coming in. I want to say thank you so much, you guys, for supporting the channel. I appreciate you. Remember, America first and America only, and God bless you as well. Upgrade. I'll see you soon. Please subscribe and come back. I'll see you guys again shortly. Thank you.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.